Welcome to early 2000s. From cargo pants to Nokia flip phones to the birth of social media as we know it today. If you're somebody who was born between the late 90s and early 2000s, then definitely some part of your heart is craving to live in the early 2000s, the coolest era. I have always loved the early 2000s, but never knew why, especially Dil Chahta Hai. But little did I know that this film is not only some rom-com coming-of-age film, but it is that film which changed the Indian cinema forever. It defined the whole generation. So what makes this movie different and is still relevant after almost 23 years since it was released? But wait, before understanding this, we need to see what kind of movies previously dominated the Hindi cinema. During the 90s, Hindi cinema was generally about intense emotions, whether it was a love story, a poverty-ridden story, or some patriotic film. There was seriousness and emotions and a hell lot of drama. And then, somewhere in 2001, a 21-year-old guy changed the whole game of Hindi cinema with his masterpiece, Dil Chahta Hai, which was the blockbuster hit and inspired the films and shows of the next 2 decades. Instead of focusing on one single hero, it tapped into the typical nature of India's youth at that time with 3 heroes. Although friendship is the main focus, Dil Chahta Hai also examines the complex nature of love. Akash's initial reluctance to commit emphasizes the fear of losing one's freedom in relationships, while Sameer's infatuations and heartbreaks represent the innocence and vulnerability of young love. These characters are not some caricatures but rather accurate representation of many personalities that exist in the real world. This film not only inspired the next films of that generation but also Indian television. In the early 2000s, shows were expected to be moral and serious, with a lot of drama and makeup, of course. Which gave us the coolest shows of all the time, including Sarabhai vs. Sarabhai, which was not a mere comedy show but was layered with elements like pun, sarcasm, wit, and irony. But do you know the birth of Star One was only to target urban audiences? Well, executives claimed that the entire content and packaging of the channel was contemporary, aspirational, upscaled, and would relate to urban India. The root of all these innovations and experiments which was happening in India lies down in our economic policies. During the early 2000s, India's economic engine had already kick-started and the liberalization policies of 90s were finally giving fruit, and that caused the rise of upper middle class in India. It was that time when India was becoming aspirational. Indian values were mixing with Western aspirations through films like Hum Tum, Kal Ho Na Ho, and of course Indo-Western music. Indian audiences were looking for stories that were more accessible, realistic, cool, aspirational, and just authentic. And that is the reason films like Dil Chahta Hai worked for them. Because when a society becomes affluent, it climbs the Maslow's hierarchy of need and moves to experimenting with life. Indian youths at that time were curious and energetic and were ready to do something unique, and it showed in the growth of India's GDP during that time. They had a knack for accepting whatever life throws at them with a smile and humor. And this attitude helped India weather many storms and emerge stronger today. And that makes the early 2000s different and unique.